As if this weekend couldn't get any better for us Michigan State fans, we got Robbie effing Hummel joining the show. Oh my God, let's.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode right here, Locked On Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Please rate, review, subscribe, do whatever it really just makes you happy there at home. I'm happy right here because I can't believe it. It is the hardest working man in college basketball. He is on a television 8 days a week, it seems. It's Robbie Hummel making a, once again, return appearance on this show. The most generous man in college basketball, some may say. And, Robbie, let's just get this kicked off with a hard question. There's nothing harder to answer than a super broad question, but you are less than 24 hours removed from calling that Michigan State-Michigan game. You just saw the Spartans play the Boilermakers 4 days ago. What, when you think about Michigan State basketball, whether it's when you're traveling, when you're sleeping, when you wake up, what sticks out the most about these last 4 days of Michigan State hoops?
Just probably how impressive the wins were. You know, you go back to the Purdue game, and I've seen a lot of Purdue. You know, I've done a lot of their games this year. So I haven't seen anyone guard Braden Smith. And granted, he got his points, you know, and he got his assists. But I just thought the way they guarded him, they made it as tough as anybody has. You know, they took away a lot of the pocket passes. Braden is really like a wizard in terms of finding angles and making tough passes. And I thought Michigan State and Tre Holloman in particular did as good a job as anybody I've seen this year at just making it tough. You know, and that's not an easy thing to do with the way that he can play. He's one of the best guards, and I think the best point guard in college basketball. And, you know, Trey Coffin-Run kind of got his numbers, but the water was shut off on everybody else. So, like, the way they defended, I thought was impressive against Purdue. The turnovers to get out and transition and do what they do best. And then, you know, last night, I think my biggest takeaway had to be just that after halftime, they came out and played a terrific 20 minutes of basketball. Yeah. Some shots went in. It was funny. Coach Izzo at shoot-around was like, you know, I'm not even trying to be greedy. Just give me like 33% or 34% from three.
We'll take it.
And he got that. I mean, I think they shot 40 in the second half, maybe even 40 for the game. But yeah, Jase Richardson is a player. I don't know. You know, the bad news of that is like, how long is he in East Lansing? Yeah. And it's probably looking like it might be getting shorter than what you thought maybe 3 months ago. But yeah, there was a lot of guys, and Tre Holloman is playing great. And I think the thing you have to really respect about him is that he's been willing to take on whatever role, off the bench, starter. You know, last night he was one of the alpha dog scorers, but the way he guarded against Purdue really stood out. And he just seems like such a good kid and such a good worker. So I'm really happy for him that he's found this type of success. And, you know, but the depth always stands out. You don't see teams that get buy-in to play 10 guys. And, you know, Coach Izzo's been doing this a long time. It's insane that he's been the head coach only 5 years shorter than what I've been alive on this planet at Michigan State. But he's a staple. He's like the godfather of the league.
You talked about Tre Holloman, so this made me think of just this question. As a broadcaster, you're sitting at the table. What is the most electric thing for you to call? Is it when someone is going back-to-back threes? Is it an alley-oop to Cohen Carr? Or is it a bank shot three-pointer by Jeremy Fears to put the dagger in? Like, what gets you the most fire on the mic?
That's a good question, you know. The dunks, and Cohen Carr is a special athlete. I think that anyone that's watched these games it wouldn't be lost on them that I feel that way. I do think he's one of the elite dunkers on the planet, not just like the conference or the country. He is like in the 0.1% of guys that can do that stuff. So that's always pretty spectacular. But like Fear's shot was major, and with the way he was struggling, and it's kind of like the dagger. So those are awesome. And then when you get a guy that's hot, whether it's, you know, Tre Holloman or you watch the NBA and it's like a Steph Curry and they go on those heaters, I guess as a shooter, I wasn't one to understand what Cohen Carr is doing. So I'll have to go with I know what it feels like to make 3 threes in 3 possessions. So I guess those are probably my favorite. But I can always appreciate a good Cohen Carr dunk.
So on yesterday's show, which we recorded for an hour, we talked about everything under the sun, but we really honed in on, obviously, Jase Richardson, Tre Holloman. Those guys combined for 39 points. But who didn't get enough credit for yesterday's game on the Michigan State side of things? I mean, there's no shortage of candidates. Obviously, no one was really lighting up the box score like Jase or Tre. But who do you think really deserves more credit in that Michigan win?
That's a good question. Kohler didn't have as good of a game as he had been having. I guess it'd probably be helpful if I pulled up a box score. Last night's game was kind of a blur in working with Raf.
I don't blame you.
That was my first time, and to say that it was like sort of surreal, but also as awesome as you would think. He is like the nicest person. There's no ego. The way that he does things, and I had talked to some people who have worked with him a lot, just to kind of, because I think I have such a respect for the way that Raf does it and the way he calls games and the games that he has called. I mean, he's called like the last 10 Final Fours, and he was on Big Monday with McDonough and Jay Billis, and there's just the history of what he's been able to do. But then you work with him and the unselfishness of we're just out here kind of calling a game and having fun like we're sitting in the bar, like you probably will do after the game with him. Right. So, that it just, the game flew by in terms of that. I guess I'd have to go with Fears because of the shots he made at the end of the game. I guess he had 10 points. Aikens had a tough shooting night, didn't make the shots that he's capable of, but hasn't made them all season long, but he does guard, and I thought he made a big three in the first half, after he'd missed a couple open shots and made one in transition. I think Fears is probably the right answer to that, but also just all of their guards from a defensive standpoint. Outside of Namari Burnett, nobody really got going. And Trey Donaldson, Tom Izzo thought was the X factor, and I agreed with him, and they did a great job on him. He's kind of the guy that makes them go, especially in transition.
That's just been fantastic about Michigan State all season long is their defense. Right now, they're 15th in defensive efficiency, which is very good. I still think it's somehow underrated. And a more simplistic way of looking at it, they just held a team to under 70 points for the 7th time in the last 8 games. So in your expert opinion, why is the defense so good? Obviously, they got athletes. They have some length, especially with Tre Holloman and his wingspan. It's communication. Sure. But above all, as you're sitting that close to the court, what is the difference maker that brings this from not just a good defense, but makes it an elite defense for Michigan State?
Yeah, I think buy-in, physicality, good guards that are willing to get in a stance and guard, and then you just have a plethora of bigs that are okay with, all right, I might play 15 minutes tonight, I might play 25 minutes tonight.
Yeah.
And they are fully bought in on their scheme. They're going to be aggressive on pick and roll. Those hard hedges are something that they've done for a long time. And while they haven't been a team that necessarily ever has forced a lot of turnovers, they're just so sound. They're so well coached. They're so well prepared. And I think going back-to-back Purdue, Michigan on a short prep, that's a credit to the coaching staff, because Purdue's a heck of a prep with the way that Trey Kaufman-Renn and Braden Smith play. And then Michigan is as unique as any team. It's not like there's some cookie-cutter offense. They've got a 7-footer out there playing pick and roll. They're playing fast. In the first half, Michigan looked like they were doing a better job of playing with tempo than Michigan State was. So, Dusty May runs a lot of really good stuff, a lot of modern stuff, 5 out, a lot of threes. I was really impressed with their staff's ability to prepare them, but the players have to be able to soak that in, in a 2-day prep. It's a great prep for the NCAA tournament. But yeah, I think just all of those things kind of come together to make them an elite defense.
March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, it's easy, and it keeps every game exciting. Now, guys, right now, I'm looking for Jason Tatum to score more than 29 points and Anthony Davis more than 12 rebounds. And it's so quick, so easy. You can make one of these lineups over a commercial break. I made my picks the other day in less than 60 seconds, and, it keeps me stay engaged during the game all night long. It's great. And what I like about PrizePicks, too, it's fast payouts. When I win, that money hits my account in as little as 15 minutes. There is no waiting around. What are you waiting for? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's all one word, LOCKEDONCollege, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's PrizePicks. Run your game. Also, guys, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is keeping it hot this NBA season. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started at FanDuel, and there's no better place to get in on all that action than America's #1 sportsbook. You already know it. It's FanDuel, where you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss opening tip, well, hey, you know what? You could still stay in the action. Or let's say you have a hunch about a big fourth quarter comeback. Go ahead, throw up FanDuel, and that's going to take care of the rest of your evening right there. Now, I love using FanDuel's live betting features because, well, it just keeps every game exciting, whether it's a one-possession game, a 40-point game. You never know what you're going to get any night in the NBA, but you can always rely on FanDuel to make it more interesting. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So it's been an incredible run here. 3 wins in such a short span in a week, and all 3 of them were against really solid opponents. Is there still yet another gear for this Michigan State team as we start approaching the month of March, or do you think they're close to hitting their ceiling? Where do you see that all netting out at right now?
I think there is, and it's sort of showed itself last night with the three-point line. I think that if they could shoot the ball at the level, I mean, last night's 41% from 3. They make 9 of them. They're averaging like 5.5 on the year. If you think about the way this team gets to the line and scores from inside the three-point line and inside the paint, I just think if they're making threes, they become incredibly hard to guard. Because what do you give up? You know, what are you going to – right now, I thought Michigan in the first half did a great job of packing it in and being like, you know, if you're not making shots, you're not going to be able to get inside on our defense. But when you start making them, it changes the dynamic. Now you feel the urgency to close out, and that paint loosens up. So I think that would be that's the next level. If they can shoot it like that, they are a really scary offensive team.
And I want to ask, like, big picture, you know, the end of Michigan State's season. They still got, you know, a long way to go in these next 4 games. But the hater in me would be remiss to not bring this up, and I will make it a Michigan State question. But Vlad Golden proposing to his girlfriend after the game, questionable is the most cordial way I'll put it. So here's how I'll make it a Michigan State question. If MSU lost by double digits at home against their rival and there was a player that proposed after the game, would we ever see that player ever again? Or would something mysterious happen? Not to say Tom Izzo's like this, you know, this ruthless man and would dispose of his body, but we can have an honest dialogue as to what that was like in the locker room.
I do think the game has changed in such a large way very quickly.
Yeah.
So like that is – I can't imagine doing that, or what Matt Painter in 2008 would have said, or 2010 would have said about that. After the win, of course, like I think that would have been fine. I guess for Tom Izzo, it probably depends on who does it. You know, if Jase Richardson did that, he probably stays. If it's the 10th man or the 11th man, they might not be seen or heard from again. You know, it always depends. There was always funny jokes about with Gene Katie that would always be told about, you know, if you miss the bus, it depended on who it was to see if they'd wait for you. If it's Glenn Robinson, they're probably going to hold up. You know, if it's one of the walk-ons, they're probably heading to the airport. And that's every team. That's the NBA. That's Michigan State. That's Purdue. That might even be Valpo High School. You know, like that's just kind of the way that these things fan out. I guess props to Vlad for having a plan and saying, you know what, I'm doing it. But it would have been, you know, it would have been happier, I feel like, if he had maybe waited for their next win. But maybe she was going out of town. We don't, you know, what are the circumstances?
That's true. Ultimatums happen, of course.
Maybe she lives in Florida and was like just here for the game, or I don't know. I don't know much about her. So, but that is a little. That's an interesting timing there. Interesting time.
It's good benefit of the doubt. That's good. Professional answer right there. That's why you're the best in the business. So just a bigger picture, like Michigan State, they got to go to Maryland, home against Wisconsin, at Iowa, and then, see this Wolverine team again. Of those 4 teams, which team should have me the most scared here, Robbie? And there's no bad answer, I'm afraid.
There's not.
But,
you know, I think for 3 of the 4 of them, Iowa's kind of struggled here with injuries. Owen Freeman's out for the season. But it's a road game, so and certainly anytime a top probably 10 team was I have to assume Michigan State would get inside the top 10. Anytime a team like that goes on the road in the Big Ten, you understand what type of atmosphere you're walking into. So, yeah, all four. But Maryland starting 5, I'll be there Wednesday. That's going to be a heck of a game. That will be just the way those – I mean, Derek Queen is a problem, and Julian Reese has come such a long way. And then Kevin Willard has done a phenomenal job in the portal of getting 3 guards that fit around those 2 bigs, that can make shots, that are dynamic. The problem for Maryland is their depth, foul trouble. And I thought Michigan State even wore Michigan down last night. I thought the depth kind of just – grinded them, and that could be a big factor in that Maryland game. But that place will be on fire. That when Xfinity Center, when Maryland is good and a big opponent's coming in, there's not many places, I wouldn't even say in the Big Ten, nationally, that are going to be as good as that place will be Wednesday night. Wisconsin obviously is playing. I think they're beating Oregon right now.
They were up 40 last time I checked. So yeah, they just don't. Oh. No, I'm just kidding. I'm exaggerating. Oh. No, they were up a sizable chunk before we hopped on this call here, but they just forgot how to lose. I'm like, they just are so.
Oh, they're only up 6. Oregon has come back. So, but regardless,
fire up.
The way that Greg Gard has been willing to change up everything that he's kind of known, as a coach under Bo Ryan, and they don't run the swing, they don't play slow. They've got 2 guys in Tanjay and Blackwell that are really good players, and Crowell's been around a long time. Nolan Winter is tremendous. Yeah. So, yeah, really good team. Klesmit's been there, seemingly. It's funny that I'm going to say this, but it feels like he's been there a long time, even though it's only 2 or 3 years. But, yeah, that Wisconsin game will be awesome. And then, of course, the revenge factor of Michigan. Now, it is in East Lansing, but that will be pretty awesome last game of the season. So, of course. All of them. All of them will be hard.
Isn't that great? No, I can't wait for the finish. No, truly, I can't wait for it, but I am scared. I will be honest with myself. I will wake up in cold sweat every morning. Those last 4 remaining games here. Robbie, incredibly generous with your time. I just got 2 broadcaster related questions to end this thing to get you into the rest of the weekend with. And the first one, I guess I should have saved this for the first question, really, build your ego here. But how awesome is it just being awesome? Because I feel like it's very hard to be universally loved as a broadcaster. I gotta say, I feel like I've never heard anything bad said about you, Jason, or Bill. What a trio that was last night. How have you done it? Just talk about how great you are, Robbie, for a second. Let's go.
It's nice of you to say that. I'm sure that there have been games.
Everyone.
I'm sure there have been games that fans have not felt that way. So it is amazing though, as you do this more. The officiating, I think, has a lot to do with how the announcers are being perceived. Granted, you have to pronounce, I think, pronunciation of names, understanding what's going on, knowing tendencies. There's a lot more that goes into it than just that. But, some of these Big Ten games are hard in the sense that I've only refereed intramural basketball at Valpo High School in 2006 and 2007, just to make a little extra money.
Sure.
And I was terrible. One of my best friends from high school to this day is still mad at me because our junior year of high school, one of the football players elbowed him in the mouth and he had to get 10 stitches, split his lip. And he blamed me because he said I didn't control the game well enough. I'm not Ted Valentine out here. I'm literally just out here running around thinking, can I make $10 an hour? So when you get into some of these calls, the rule book is this thick. And I know a lot about basketball, I'd like to think, because I've played it since I was 5 or whatever. But some of the officiating stuff, the rules can be confusing at times. And I think I have a pretty good grasp of the rules, but not to the level that the rest do. And, some of these block charge calls or some of these bang, bang plays, or you look at, there's a number of them that I think are really hard, especially for the officials in real time. And it's just that is the hardest part. My dream is for a guy like Gene Steratore to just sit next to me. And any questionable call, I'd be like, Gene, what do you think? that would make everything so much better because he is an expert, pick any ref that refs in the Big Ten. That would be great. But I think a lot of the disdain or the unhappiness that comes from announcers is when the officiating is going in a way that fans feel is against their team. And if the announcers aren't calling it out and saying, oh, bad call, or boy, they're getting screwed or whatever, well, you're doing a bad job. So, in terms of working with Jason and Raph, Benetti, and I know that people in Michigan, whether you're a Michigan fan or a Michigan State fan, have gotten to hear him a lot more because of the Tigers job. There aren't many guys that are doing play-by-play that have the voice, the intelligence, and even like just the knowledge of the game to be able to raise the level of the broadcast. I mean, his voice is really like an instrument. When he has to go for a big moment, dude, he knocks that out of the park. He is, but he also, like, his feel for basketball is tremendous. He knows the game really, really well. But you can tell, he goes to Syracuse. We were giving him a hard time last night, even though that's probably the best school you can go to, judging by how many play-by-play guys have come out of there. And he sounds a lot like Sean McDonough, I think, which makes sense because McDonough has been a big mentor for him. Okay. But yeah, just the way he sets you up, the way that Jason asks questions that get you to a deeper level on things. He's an elite play-by-play guy. And I'm pretty lucky. I work mostly Kevin Kugler, Brandon Gaudin, Noah Eagle, and Jason Benetti. You're not going to go wrong. And there's some other guys that get sprinkled in that are also very good. But those four dudes are pretty good at what they do. And then you throw Raph into the equation. I kind of hit on this earlier, but I was blown away at how unselfish and how unabout himself, when he could make it all about himself, the broadcast is. Yeah. Even before the game, he turned to me and it was like, you take it where you want and I'll follow. And I'm like, what? You take it where you want and I'll follow, what are you talking about? He's just, man, he's a selfless teammate. He's a legend. I got goosebumps, at the start of the game when he's doing his thing about announcing who's doing the game and saying the man-to-man. Or he gave us a send it in. I was like, hell yes, send it in. Like he's just, man, that there's a reason he's called so many big games for 40 years, and there is not a person that's doing games that I have so much respect for Bill Raftery, and on top of everything that he does in the broadcast, for how awesome he is off the air. The way he treats people, he treats fans, the way he, is just welcoming to anything. He is a phenomenal person.
I told the story at like minute number 54 in last night's recap, but like I did run into Bill by happenstance at the Final Four in 2019. Everything you said, nicest guy in the world. It was a very short interaction, but like he didn't have to like stop and take a picture with some, starstruck fan, but he did. Like he truly was back then awesome. It's still great to hear he truly is like that, even when you're working with him constantly throughout a day. Now, last question. Got to put you in the trust tree. Honest hours, Robbie, okay? Because when Noah Eagle against Purdue says that he learned that Jase Richardson is the son of Jason Richardson from the Locked On Spartans podcast.
Yes.
Did you really think that he had no idea going into that game, or just
I think he was kidding. I asked him in the timeout what he was talking about.
His delivery was sensational, I think. It was nice.
But he said that was he dared to say it? Is that what it was?
Yeah, so I made a request during the football season to say like something that is said every single broadcast, and he did it in the first quarter. And then I just went back to the well, and I said, can you mention that you learned on Locked On Spartans that Jase is the son of Jason, and act like you had no idea until you joined this show. So that's
because I thought he was kind of like, I thought he was being just sarcastic in the sense of, everyone knows that he's Jason Richardson's son. Like that's like the worst kept secret, which checks right along with what you just said. But I didn't realize that it had been like a thing on a podcast. You'd be surprised in TV. That happens more often than you'd think with like,
does it?
Okay. My call is a great example. My call at BTN is like unbelievable. And he's got an improv background. He was on Dream Job, the ESPN show back in the day, and that's kind of how he got in. So, but he's worked with like Second City, and he's done stuff in Chicago here where he's got a real comedic mind, and he's very light on his feet. So whenever I'm in the studio with Mike, I'll give him like an off the wall word, like not a bad word or like something like that.
Right.
I would like to do that, but obviously I'm trying to not get him fired. But one time, this is one example. We do this every time we work together. I was just like, all right, I don't know why I thought of Dwight Eisenhower, the president, but I'm like, get Dwight Eisenhower into this segment. And he got it in the first 10 seconds. He literally is like, welcome into the Big Ten Network studios right off the Dwight D. Eisenhower Expressway here in Chicago. I'm Mike. And granted, that ended up being a little easier than I thought because I'm like, and maybe I was subconsciously like, I took the Eisenhower to work. So maybe I was like kind of thinking that, but just stuff like that, where if my call is there and I'm there and you hear something where you're like, what are these guys talking about? It's probably because I dared him to say it and he found a way to get it in and make it make sense.
Can we sneak a boy howdy in to Wednesday's show? I say that every once in a while. I'm just going through my
boy howdy
lingo I use. So if we can sneak a boy howdy into Wednesday's broadcast,
I will do my best. My brain has become mush at this point in the season, but I will
not
try.
Blame you. So hey, cannot thank you enough for just carving out some time. As for 15 minutes, got 23 out of you. You went to overtime with us, Robbie, and for that, can't thank you enough. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Cannot wait to hear you the rest of the season because, like I said, you're the best, man. You truly are.
No, I appreciate that. It's been a fun year. I'm very lucky to get to do what I do.
Robbie, I agree. It has been a really fun year. I like college basketball again.
Really good year for Michigan State. Yep.
I'm smiling during the entire conversation. I don't know if I've ever done that with you in the last few years because there's been other things to talk about. But hey, we're enjoying this one. All right, guys, all the viewers, all the listeners. It's not just Robbie. That's the best. It's also you guys out there. We will be back because, we do this 5 days a week. Until then, take care of yourselves. Love you all. Go Green.